So my name is Steve Crothers. I'm originally from Meigs County, Ohio. My sobriety date is August 7th of 2016.
Very cool. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you could start off by sharing a bit about your childhood.
Um, my mom and dad were divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I was raised by a single mother. My dad was still, he lived close by. My grandparents had a really big part in my upbringing because my mom worked. So when she worked, I would spend most of my time, summertime, with my grandparents. But it was a good childhood.
And were you an only child or siblings?
No, I am the youngest. I have an older sister.
Okay, gotcha. So when did you first start experimenting? When was your first use, and what did it do for you?
I was at my house and I was prescribed some pain medication, and I jokingly read the bottle to a friend of mine that was staying with me, and I said, "It says take one every 4 hours. I think I'm going to take four every hour." So I did. Um, and that probably should have been a sign at an early age that, like, one is not ever enough for me. I've got to go to the extreme with everything. And I ended up taking too many and getting sick. And I didn't go to the hospital, but I would say you might consider that an overdose.
Yeah.
I was definitely sick, throwing up. Had to tell my parents what I did. So I found out at an early age that I enjoyed, even though I was sick, I enjoyed that. So it should have been a sign at a very young age, but it wasn't.
Could you share a bit about the progression of your disease?
Yeah, so when I was, again, in junior high, me and a buddy of mine thought it was cool to have the appearance of being messed up. So before we would go to a dance or any kind of school function, we were cool if we would sneak down to my grandfather's basement and drink a couple drinks of his French brandy, just so we'd have it on our breath, so people would think that we were doing something that we shouldn't be doing. But again, that was something that I enjoyed. I liked that. Again, it should have been a key that I have an issue. But I found out later on when I did kind of, I wouldn't say it's normal, but I did your sneaking around and drinking on the weekends with your buddies at parties. But I found out very quickly that I had a tolerance at a very early age. Like, some of my buddies, the first time they drank, they would drink 3 or 4 beers and be buzzed, and I would drink 6 or 8, and I could still drink more. So I thought that was impressive, to drink more than everybody else. And then about the same time, I experimented with marijuana for the first time. Um, my two friends that I smoked with, one's now a doctor, and the other one is a big shot with an electric company now. Like, they didn't have that same allergy that I did. They could do it and experiment, and they were done. Well, it didn't work that way with me. So after I smoked, I did that for a good while, and then that led into cocaine at some point. And none of those things were really something that I was, like, attracted to, I would say. Like, I could go for a long period of time and not think about doing those things. And then when I took pain pills for the first time, like, it was like a light went off in my head. Like, I love how that makes me feel. So after I started doing that, I would seek out pain pills.
Were they originally prescribed to you after the first
Yeah,
injury?
for a short time, and then that's when I had to kind of, like, if I go to my buddy's house and stay, like, "Hey, does your mom and dad have anything for pain?" And at the time, being that young, like, my friends didn't understand. They just thought, he likes taking a pill. So they would give me their parents' pain pills. And that just progressed. And then in high school, I had several sports-related injuries, a couple surgeries I had to go through. So, like, I was sporadically being prescribed pain medication. And through all that, like I did your, I guess you'd say, normal high school drinking and partying, but I always knew pain pills was like, I really liked how I felt on those pain pills. So I dabbled all through school, even in school, I was always known in high school, like, um, some girls were afraid to go out with me because I was known to be the partier, the crazy guy. Go get a fifth of whiskey and throw the cap out the window because we're just going to drink it all, that kind of thing. But again, everything always was trying to lead back to pills. And then when I graduated high school and went to college, they were a little more easily accessible. And I kept it kind of quiet because I was living in Columbus at the time. And then I got married, had another sports injury, and my wife at the time was a nurse. So when I went to the doctor, I stretched my ACL out, and it got pretty bad. So because she was a nurse in the ER, she knew all the doctors, and this was way before the opioid epidemic hit. So I was basically getting pain pills like Tic Tacs at the time. Like I was getting 120 a couple times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And all I'd have to do is call, and they would write me another script. So it was very easy for me to get them at that point. But I hid that from my wife. I hid that from my family. I hid that from everybody. No one knew how bad it was. And it was to a point that I needed 10 to 15 pills just to get out of bed. Like if I didn't have that, I didn't want to get out of bed. And that was just to get me started. And then the rest of the day, it was, how do I find more? Because again, like, it's that cliche you hear, like, you know, one's never enough. And it's, for me, it's not. Like, it's not. So it just progressed with the pain pills, and my ex-wife now finding out and trying to talk to me about it, like, hey, you need to quit, like, and of course I'd say, yeah, I'll quit, I'll stop, and I would for short periods of time, a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then I would sneak around and start using, and which that ultimately finally led up to us splitting up. And then after we split up, I didn't have that person to kind of check me on what I was doing. So then my disease really progressed then, because I didn't have to answer. I didn't have to worry about someone catching me doing something. And I had a few friends that were IV users, and for some reason that always intrigued me. Like, why do you do it that way? What's it feel like? So I would constantly ask my friend, like, this was before Oxycontin was really big. I was like, I really want to do that. And that's not what normal people, like, normal people don't think, I want to try being an IV user. But to me, that's what I wanted to try. He wouldn't, I didn't know how to do it, and he wouldn't do it because he didn't want to get me started. And I pestered and pestered and pestered until finally one day he came over, and I shot up for the first time. And then that opened up a whole new world to me. Like, nothing ever worked again that I couldn't put in a needle. I was probably as addicted to the needle as I was to the drug. At that time I was a functioning addict. I still had it together, still could maintain a job. So yeah.
And then did there become a point that you were no longer a functioning addict?
Yes. Yeah, after my divorce, I was working at the time. I was actually working for the government. Had a really good job. And I hit it from there too, but as it just progressed, I knew I couldn't continue to do what I was doing. The job, they ended up moving. They wanted me to move to New York and work, and I didn't want to move. So I kind of, after that, I just kind of nickel dime jobs, doing side jobs, whatever I could pick up, just to try to keep my habit going. And then from there, when I really got in the depths of my addiction, it was stealing from family members. It was hustling. It was selling dope to make money to have dope. I ran out of options. My mom, and God love her, she's a great woman, but she was one of my biggest enablers. And then one day she wasn't. Like someone flipped a light switch. So I came home one day and she said, you're going somewhere. I don't know where you're going, but you're going somewhere. You don't have a house. You don't have family. We're done. Like, we are totally done. So I found a place I could detox. I went to detox. Had a rough time with it. But I thought, okay, well, I'm clean now, so I'll call my family and I'll go back home and I'll start using again. So I called my mom and she's like, hey, I'm done. They're going to discharge me. And she said, well, that's good. Good luck, and hung up. And I thought, that's not how that's supposed to work. Like, you're supposed to come and get me. So I called her back and she's like, well, that's good, but I'm done. Like, I am done with you. You're on your own. Figure it out. So I was like, I don't have a clue what to do. So it's funny, like, everything happens for a reason. And I see that in recovery. I've heard people say, is it odd or is it God? Like, I don't know. But I do know there were a lot of situations and things lined up and things happened that I didn't have any control over. So when I was in detox, I didn't have anywhere to go. So a caseworker told me about the John Clem Recovery House. And it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening. And she said, you should call. There won't be anyone to answer the phone, but you can leave a message and talk to him tomorrow. So I called the Clem House, and for some reason the director at the time was Ron Luce, and he was here. He was working late that night. So he talked to me, we did an interview, and he said, if you can come tomorrow between this time and this time, like, you can come in. So I thought, okay, cool, like, I found a place. So again, I called my mom and I said, hey, can you pick me up and take me to the sober living house? And she said, no, I can't. Like, again, you're on your own. So I had to hustle a ride. I found a way to get down here to Athens. I came to Athens, and had my mom not have showed me some tough love and the rest of my family, I don't think I'd be sitting here today. At the time, I was really bitter and angry. But my mom and my family saved my life by doing the things they did. As hard as it was for them, and I see that now, it saved my life. So I came to the Clem House. Part of the program here is you have to have a job. So I had a truck, and I started doing construction up here in Athens. So I called my mom and said, hey, I need my truck. And she's like, well, that's good, but you don't have a truck. Like, I have a truck, but like, you don't have a truck anymore. I'm like, well, I need it to work. And she said, well, there's people that work all the time that don't have trucks. So like, figure it out. Like, I'm done. So I was like, hey, this is crazy. And I said, well, I don't even have a phone. Like, I can't, can you give me my cell phone back? And she said, no, it's funny. Like, I have 2 phones now, but you don't have one. And I, like, this is insane. But, by coming here and not having anything and then working to gain all those things back, it gave me a better appreciation, taught me the things that I needed to learn to put me in the right position for my recovery to really take off. So after I was here at the Clem House for almost a year, I was almost a year sober, I got indicted from 3 years prior. And I was a nervous wreck. I thought, I'm going to prison. I went down to court, scared to death. The house manager at the time here and Ron went to court with me. my mom worked for the court system, so they had to call a special judge in. I had to have a special prosecutor come in. So I thought for sure with the people coming from different places that like they're gonna hammer me pretty bad. Um, when I went down for my first hearing, they set bond, and the prosecutor wanted like $20,000-$30,000 bond because my indictment had been out for so long and I didn't turn myself in. Um, so she was claiming I was trying to evade arrest, which I wasn't. I was always here at the sober house. But one of the key people in my recovery was Richard Briggs, the house manager here, and we went down. She asked for that high bond, and I was like, I'm going to jail. I don't have that kind of money. Ended up they lowered it, and I walked outside and I was talking to Richard, and he said, I could tell you were worried. And I said, yeah, like I don't have that kind of money. He pulled out a wad of money out of his pocket, and he said, you were going home with me today, one way or another. He said, there's a bank across the street. He said, if this wouldn't do it, he said, I would go get more. You're going home with me. So having all those people put in my life, and again, it's just the stars lining up, but it's really not. But like, Ron was a big part of everything, accepting me into the house. Then Richard was here and taught me so many things about recovery, and all these people were here for me. And like everything else, even with my getting sober and detox, like my plan was to come to a sober house and stay for a month or two until my parents and my family was like, oh, he's doing good, he can come home. And I wanted to go home, and I was going to use again. That was my goal. But the longer I was here and the longer I was surrounded by people in good recovery, and I could see how happy people were, and I could see them thriving. I could see them going out to eat and having money. I could see them being productive. I could see people in the community wanting to talk to them, wanting to be around them. And after a period of time, like just like a light went off with the opiates in the beginning, a light went off in my head with recovery. Like, I want this. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I want it. And that's really when things really turned around. When I finally opened up my eyes, that's when things really started getting better.
With your children, how did you become the dad that you wanted to be? And what is it that you, depending on their ages, tell them about, substance use disorder, to help them understand this disease?
I always had a good relationship with my kids, even when I was using. That's one thing. Even when I was in active addiction, I would try to plan to have Suboxone, or try to figure out how I'm going to break up my using so I wasn't totally obliviated when my kids were around. Was I a bad parent at times? Of course. Of course I was. I know I was now. But I don't know if I can really say like I became the father I wanted to be in recovery, because I tried to maintain that. I never missed events. I never missed my kids playing sports. I was always there. I might not be feeling the best. I might wear sunglasses when it's cloudy so you can't see my eyes, but I was there. My oldest son now, he's 23. My youngest son's 17, and I have a very good relationship with both of them, very open and honest. I'm to the point now in my recovery with my oldest son that we can laugh and we can joke, and I can talk to him about pretty much everything. Like, I've told him everything. My youngest son, I haven't. He knows most things, but he doesn't know the depths of how bad it got.
So for somebody who is out there who is struggling, do you have some words of hope that have helped you in those challenging times?
Um, when you're at your lowest point, when you're at that spot that you don't think you have any hope, you're just at the bottom of the barrel. Um, there's really only one way to go, and that's up. So don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't think there's no hope, because no matter how far down you are, there's only one way you can go, and that's up.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. You know, you help a lot of people, and being able to share your story is really very inspirational, and really it's going to help somebody out there. So thank you so much.